So did you hear about IPS?
I've heard of it.
This guy's a dickhead. You're all fucking mentally ill. I'm mentally ill. You think the fucking NASA is lying to you? Stop filming me! Stop fucking filming me now! Stop filming me now! You're in a public place. Right, you touch him again, I'll knock you clean out, right?
That would be a triggered Globe believer. This was from John Smith Globe Lie, who's doing some excellent street activism, and he recently set up a camper with all kinds of research flat earth stuff on it. And this was uploaded by Flathead Politics, who caught the live stream this morning where a globe earther got really triggered and got physical. He couldn't handle the truth. Okay, and here's another big one. If you've missed this one, this here demands an answer, an explanation. And anybody out there still debating flat Earth is wasting their breath and wasting their time. Think about it. Why is there so much time being spent debating the globe, which we know how difficult it is to falsify something on that scale, when watch this. Watch this. This is some Flat Earth brothers, and this is very simple. This discredits the ISS as anything other than a slickly made green screen special effects production. The microphone is literally going through Chris Hadfield's neck.
Completely. I have not done any video effects on this. The video special effects were probably done live on the air, which is why this happened. There it is. Now it's in his face. He's going to pull away and watch it will vanish. The microphone, it vanished. The microphone literally vanished completely.
See, the microphone vanished, but as you can see, it's here in the beginning. This black line here, that's the microphone. That's being held up to Chris's face. Okay, this is it here. You're looking at the microphone. They're taking questions. And so Chris is up here playing music upside down. And if you can't tell these people are chroma keyed in just by the edges, then you're video illiterate. Like at this point, you should be able to know when you're looking at rear screen projection, and you should be able to look at any piece of video like this and know that these two individuals are not in that room. This is basic. You can tell by the edges, the shading, the way they don't blend into the background. This is a copy and paste job. They're in front of a screen. In fact, if you look at their angles, more than likely, they're suspended from wires on their back. And that's why they have their hands always so awkward. They don't know where to put their hands. Something else a commenter brought up was, why are the astronauts always so clean shaven? You know, how do they shave? My questions have to do with some of the women up there. Where do they get their Botox and their makeup and their hair dye? You know, you had Peg Whitson or Whitman up there for 666 days drinking Russian piss. And she left with sunken cheeks and gray hair. And she had real nice auburn hair and very full, plump, Botox out cheeks. And a full face of makeup whenever she made these TV appearances. But again, you just saw the microphone and watch it disappear into Chris's neck.
Don't bleed. And he's really tough, very heroic, not showing any pain or side effects from the microphone stabbing into his face. And also, you can see here, the microphone vanishes. Completely gone. Nowhere to be seen.
Okay, so this here alone, look. If you think the ISS is in space, no need to debate me. No need to debate anybody. No need. All you need to do is explain this. Explain the disappearing microphone and how it occupies the same place at the same time as Chris's head. I know in physics, I know, basic, there we go. basic laws of physics suggest things such as two things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. But maybe that doesn't apply in outer space, where a microphone and a human head can be in the exact same spot at the same time, and look, no blood. Proof you don't bleed in space, experiments done live from the ISS. This is from Flat Earth Brothers. Again, there's no question. This is green screen. So maybe you think the ISS is real. Well, even if you do, this particular scene cannot be real. There's your microphone. There's the microphone going into Chris's head. And of course, this is not the only time. There are hours of flaws like this. And, what do we do with it? Well, we stop debating with people who think this is real. And look, you should be excluded from the flat earth versus round earth debate. You should be excluded if you don't have an explanation for this, because this changes everything. This disappearing microphone means that the ISS is fake, which means that Starman is fake. That anybody sending supplies up to the ISS, it was done with fakery. It means that the president's been tricked. He thought he was talking to the ISS in space when he was in his office. You see what I mean? So one more time. Flat Earth Brothers, this is something to show your friends. Trying to find, there we go. You can see where the actual layers are merging. Anyway, this is why I don't waste time on debates. I kind of think a debate is a stalling tactic, and I've said that before. It's definitely a stalling tactic, and it doesn't lead to anything. And so you can sit down all day looking at the same windmills 30 miles away, debating on whether or not the amount of occlusion is consistent with their model. And when it isn't, you can debate whether or not their explanations of standard refraction hold up or don't. And you can talk about it 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never get anywhere. And I think that's exactly what these guys would like you to do. They like to lead you around like little sheep around your paddock. Meanwhile, right here, you have the Achilles heel. You could bring down the space station with this. But people are obviously, they all have their own agendas with this, and they interpret the information differently. Here's something I think is interesting. This is from Effed Up World. 144,000 are being sealed. And so this is something I was looking into this morning, and it has to do with biblical prophecy. And my question lately has been, why do we bring the Bible into the discussion about the shape of the world, and we don't bring the Bible into discussions about climate change? Why should the Bible be inserted? All of us went through the same kind of introduction to this material. We all went through the same series of videos where it inevitably led to, well, what are they doing? Well, they're hiding how significant we are by making us look tiny in comparison, which I think is crap. Even on a spinning ball in an infinite universe, I don't think that makes us any less important. I think that whole explanation is bunk. They're hiding God, really? I mean, how many of you were raised without religion being shoved down your throat? But that's the explanation. They lead you to God. So they turned it into a 12-step conversion program for religion. It's like, how many people were born again because of flat Earth? It's like, wait a minute. I wasn't born again when I figured out that global warming was a hoax. So listen to this guy, though, because they have conflated these things to where now they're suggesting that 144,000 names that are sealed, which will be unveiled, are the flat earthers.
Which came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Okay. I know everybody watching this can get the idea of what I'm talking about, but I need to explain what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's 144,000 people going to be sealed. Then, if we go to Revelation chapter 10. I'm already there. Okay, we saw an angel come down from heaven. I'll read chapter 10. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire.
Okay, so the angel comes down, he's got a rainbow on his head, his feet are pillars of fire, and he's wearing clouds. Like, we're talking about these things instead of asking, what's at the North Pole? What's with the green screen? What are they hiding below? Do you see what I mean? Like, where this is so non sequitur. You wouldn't bust out Revelations to counter the arguments of John Kerry or Al Gore. Like, I really think that the Bible should not be in this discussion. It has no place. And the fact that they inserted it, I think, is subversion. So listen to these quotes. And this is what people actually believe. Okay, so one thing is this. If you're not a flat earth believer in their paradigm, you're condemned. You're going to hell. Your parents don't believe that the earth is flat, they're going to hell. Listen to this. This is from Lisa Haney. Not all flat earthers are going to rule and reign with Christ. That's another part of the story. The Revelations 5 and 6 and 7 has to do with the sky falling, the scroll rolling back, Revelations, and then of course the chunks of the sky will fall on the non-believers. The sky will fall. That's the flat earth doomsday prophecy. It says Yahshua created 144,000. So Yahshua is the flat earth God. The flat earth biblical God isn't Jesus. They've changed it to Yahshua. And so in their interpretation, he created 144,000 people in 12 different tribes and scattered them around the globe, it says here, the world. And that you were chosen and created for this purpose from the moment of creation. So before Jesus was born and crucified, you were already created to accept his sacrifice. It was already written. This whole predestination thing I find very, very annoying. So you don't have a choice. No matter how good you are, you could cure cancer. You're still going to hell if you weren't born and created to be one of the 144,000 saved. She says, many people are aspiring to be a part of this group, but this is not something to aspire to. It's the purpose that they were created for. The people who are not created to be in this group, this is just not their purpose. And so this got me thinking about what the collective said to me. And the collective said that there are 12 tribes and that there are 12 YouTube channels that associate with the 12 tribes. And that of these 12 YouTube channels, they have 18 million views between them, and that my path of salvation has been taken. And I'll show you the email if you want to see it. I'll bring it up later. But basically, I've had these doomsday Yeshua 144,000 biblical end times skyfall Christians coming after me before. Yeah, here we go. 144,000, 12,000 tribes each. So there's 12 tribes. Each tribe has 12K people. And they're the ones who will be saved. And the rest of us, we're going to hell. It says, Jesus, Yeshua, represents the line of Judah from birthright, the house of David. The 144,000 were preordained, and they always have been. It is just now that a fire has come over, we are commanded now to obey. And so what they're being promised behind closed doors within their churches, what the flat earth religionists are being taught is that they're chosen. And a lot of them are converting to this thing, and they're being told, probably covertly, hey, look, you're being chosen for this. They're going to be resurrected, or rather, we're going to be squashed under the dome. They are going to be given immortal Christ bodies, and they're going to come back and kick your ass. Okay, here's some more wide-eyed believers.
So many scriptures, there's no firmament on a ball. Like, there's no firmament on a spinning ball. Like, if we're spinning in space, how is the firmament gonna, like, no, there's a firmament. So many scriptures, you know, there's no firmament on a ball. Like, there's no firmament on a spinning ball. Like, if we're spinning in space, how is the firmament gonna, like, no, there's a firmament.
Again, there's a firmament. And does it mean a dome? I don't know. Okay, so I'm looking through the comments here. So not all of us are going to survive and reign. It's a very exclusive group. And I wonder if they're all Rh negative. Like, what's with the exclusivity? You know, like the different people, the different sides of this debate. It's like, oh, you got 144,000 people on this side. You got the Rh negatives on that side. You got the blood over intent on this side. Like, why is it constantly being filtered through smaller and smaller groups, and you've got to accept more and more and more things? And I actually think that the fact that they managed to get the Bible into this conversation is how they co-opted it. I think they really did. They hijacked it. They did exactly what the Jesuits did with the Reformation and with the Counter-Reformation, where they get their agents in. They get their agents in place in all the institutions of education, and they surreptitiously reintroduce their religion under the guise of science. And this is no different than the way that many of these Bible-believing activists will lead with science and then jump to the Bible. I mean, that's scientism. It's no different than Mark Sargent, Flat Earth Clues, 100, you know, it's 1 through 12. Very just open-ended questions, asking questions, looking at research. And then it leads you to what? The Bible. You know, why would it lead to the Bible? Well, to me, the Bible is the mark of the beast. You know, accepting this doctrine, this authoritarian doctrine, puts you in line with Rome. And I'm not the first to suggest that biblical literalism is a form of idolatry. Okay, here's a side topic, an issue that came up yesterday. Egypt sentences an activist for spreading fake news. Okay, so this was a woman who was treated poorly, sexually harassed in Egypt, and she said the government there didn't give a damn. So writing about it, publishing about it, got her charged with cybercrime. Her criticisms of the government were considered to be a threat to national security. And so this is the part that I found particularly interesting. It says, in Egypt, any social media accounts with more than 5,000 subs are placed under supervision. And I thought about this before. You know, this crossed my mind before. I'm like, wait a minute. It just seems like once I hit 5,000 subs on YouTube, that's when the stalkers and the trolls became very engaged. And so what it seems like is if you hit that level of popularity, the cybercrimes division will watch you and probably stalk you and try to derail and discredit and destroy you. And I've seen that, and I think that's the magic number, 5,000. And then what's worse is after you've reached that and you've got on their radar, I don't think you're ever off it. Which is why I can have 5 people on a live stream at 3:30 in the morning, and I'll have my usual suspects, you know, the government paid stalkers over there with the same tired, old, recycled, stale accusations. So, yeah, 5,000 people it is in Europe. You're following 5,000, you're suddenly a potential threat to national security. Okay, here's another one. A couple of things. Something really disturbing. Just looking how they're recycling a lot of the shooting propaganda, because here we are just about on the 1-year anniversary of the Vegas shooting, which was October the 1st. And so they're going to have some type of an event, a memorial. And here on this article, this is what they always do. They take these anniversaries as a time to do new stories about all these other fake events, which makes them all realer and realer. They keep reinforcing the propaganda with each new event. And I'm looking at this, the different numbers, like, so this was the deadliest, 58 people killed. Not to name names, but you do have a couple of flat earth researchers who attach themselves to the Vegas event by claiming to know people who died there. And to me, that day really did separate a lot of the real from the fake. In fact, some people claim to know gym teachers, or they knew someone who drove someone to the hospital, all fake. And they brought out some news stories here about victims who spent the last year in the hospital, and you're seeing footage. It looks like it's filmed from a soap opera. Totally fake. Can you really get a camera crew into an ICU? I'd like to ask that question from a hospital. Hey, can I have the Fox News crew show up and hang out in the ICU and watch this lady who's in a coma? Like, I don't think so. I don't think the families would allow it. But you see it because it's a made-for-TV drama. So you have 49 that weren't killed in Florida, 32 Virginia Tech. Originally I thought it was 33. And this is one where he said he was being bullied. And that's a big one too. Okay, so yeah, guns are the devil, but they also like to get the idea of bullying out there, because when you have bullying, it inquires social inequality. And then who's bullying who? Oh, it's the white rich kids bullying the minorities, or bullying the poor kids who don't fit in. It's always Republicans, MAGA hat wearing, jocks. So they have all these stories that they can spin endlessly. Adam Lanza, aka David Hogg, killed 27, fake. Now this one is fake too. This is the one that Sidethorn went to go check out. 26 people killed at a church. Now the thing about this one that's interesting is the next day there were 26 little crosses with angels on them in front of the church. The next day. Reminds me of Sandy Hook, 26 kids killed. Then you have 26 Christmas trees. And these Christmas trees were found to be already on the school property before the shooting happened. Okay, here's a guy who went to a Luby's, shot 23. I didn't hear about this one, 91. Probably fake. I'm looking back at this James Huberty, probably fake. 17 killed Whitman, probably fake. 17 fake. I mean, we really have to go back and look at all of these. You can't say, oh, they started faking them with Sandy Hook. No, I think they've been faking these things for a long damn time. You have to realize that they've wanted to disarm the slaves from the get-go. 13 in Littleton, 13 Fort Hood, both fake. 13 in Birmingham. Now, I remember this one with Major Hassan. I totally bought that one. I totally thought that one was real. And now I have to go back and look at it again. Because with that one, they try to connect it to Islam. Is on a military base. They said he had a card that was Soldiers of Allah. They had a video of him on 7-Eleven, at 7-Eleven, a convenience store, wearing white Muslim garb and carrying a Quran. And so they claimed, of course, that he was a jihadi sleeper agent. And then the liberals said, no. He was a good Muslim, but he was so traumatized as a military psychiatrist from having to hear stories of Americans who are traumatized from killing this guy's countrymen that he had PTSD from their PTSD accounts, or stories that gave them PTSD. Anyway, they defended this guy, saying that he was just responding to American imperialism. I mean, these psyops are so pliable. Really, you can use it to really justify anything. 13 killed, early 1900s and prior. Okay, so how many of these are fake? How many of these are just completely fabricated? I would say 100% fake. I'd have to go back and look at the older ones, but I've yet to see a real shooting that's, you know how you know they're real? You never hear about it. If it's a real death, if it's a real tragedy, and there's no agenda that can be attached to it, you're probably not going to hear about it. Also, one of the Parkland shooting parents has made the national stage confronting Kavanaugh or whatever, just like, it's like, are you kidding me? These crisis actors are now jumping into the big political dramas of the day. I mean, you can't tell me these things are not coordinated. I couldn't get center stage in the middle of one of these big political dramas of the day, these big hearings. And yet you got somebody here connected to a known psyop. You know, you have these crisis actors on social media who are being treated as real people. You know, they figured it out. They figured out how to create characters and then insert them into reality. You know, it's better than having Hollywood actors whoring themselves up for big government propaganda because it's just too obvious. Now you have these fake victims, these people who've attached themselves. I mean, David Hogg is just a movie star. Take a look at this. Defunct satellites, spent rocket parts, and human debris accumulating in orbit. This whole space junk thing, I've been talking about this for months now. I said, hey, look, they're going to start hyping it up. It was last year, I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, oh, there's so much space junk, your grandkids can't go to space. And Joe Rogan says, wow, that's horrible. Has anything ever been hit? And instead of answering the question, Neil changed the topic. And then the interview eventually ended and they never returned to it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Neil was given a line, but he wasn't given a second line to follow that one. So they said, hey, Neil. He said, yes, big brother. I said, Neil, we need you to go on to Comrade Joe Rogan's show and propagate the masses about space junk so we can use this as a new universal threat so that we can maintain control over all space travel. And so, of course, you have Neil on there saying, oh, there's so much space junk. And when Joe says, has it hit anything? Neil doesn't have any information to attach that to. They haven't had that scenario happen. Well, now you got the hole in the satellite, the hole in the space station. They brought it back, and now you have these simulations of nets in space capturing junk. It doesn't show you how you get it back. It doesn't explain. I really don't understand how you can cast a net in a vacuum and have, I mean, the whole thing just seems a little like rushed. And I don't want to give them any hints. I'm afraid they'll steal my ideas with Saturn X, but I think if we wanted to do space junk reclamation, the smart way would be to have a trash compactor that would look kind of like a space shuttle. And it would use electromagnetism to snag space junk, examine it, and if it belongs to China or if we don't have the approval to take it, we put it back. Because one of the issues I ran into, and I was doing some research on this, I said, hey, I want to be a space junk entrepreneur. I said, can I go clean up space junk? And I was looking into the regulations, and it basically says, well, no, because if you grab something that belongs to another country, you could create an international incident, even if it's junk. So I'm thinking, well, maybe then we have a way to examine the junk before we keep it. And if it looks like it belongs to somebody else, we just put it back into orbit. But the second thing was, what do you do with this material? And I'm thinking about recycling, upcycling. So you have this shuttle collecting approved pieces of junk. When it's full, I mean, we would have remote operators. I'd be here at my laptop controlling the thing, examining, checking the label on this piece of junk, see who it belongs to. Once the thing's full, we would use steam-powered jet boosters, probably designed by Mad Mike Hughes, which would then blast the whole thing, like a full trash can, over to the moon, where it can be upcycled, recycled, utilized by the future inhabitants of the lunar base. And so I'd send it there, put a price tag on it, and send a bill to Jeff Bezos. I have a solution for all the space junk. What they have is just really sloppy. But you're supposed to believe what you're seeing right there is a CubeSat floating in space. Floating in space. Witch Hazel says, wouldn't want to start a war in heaven. Yeah, think about that, the war in heaven and the names of these different rockets. And how they're always, playing upon archetypes. And wouldn't shock me if they went there, if it goes there. They also talk about the Kessler effect. So maybe if they can't instigate an actual war or a convincing one, a Kessler effect just means one piece of space junk hits another, hits another, hits another, until the whole sky is just an avalanche of falling junk. And what would it look like? Well, it would look like a meteor shower, but you would have no internet. There'd be all kinds of disruptions. You would have things hitting the ground. So they have a space junk Armageddon scenario if they can't convince you that there's going to be international, national wars involving space. They can't really convince us of that. Then they'll go with Armageddon from just space junk and the Kessler effect. If those don't work, who knows what they'll do? I know the alien invasion thing seems less and less likely. I think they would have done that on September 11th, 2001, if they felt like they had primed us with enough propaganda. So they're like, well, so we did get von Braun's alien invasion. We did actually get it, in the end. But it came in the form of foreign invaders instead of somebody from Mars. So 9/11 was your alien invasion scenario. And he said next you would have space junk, you would have asteroids. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Pieces of Mars have landed on Earth. Something that they're bringing up now with these Japanese probes landing on that asteroid 200 million miles away and sending us real-time video, is they're saying, hey, these things have water on them. And what they're trying to suggest here is that water on bits of land floating around space, just debris, contains the seed of life, panspermia. And so they're trying to suggest that pieces of Mars have hit the Earth. We could be Martians. I've heard this before. In fact, check this out. It was Mother's Day. I was watching 60 Minutes at a relative's house. And they're talking to an astronaut who says, oh yeah, Mars was once green like Earth. It was once green and blue, and it was just a paradise. And then it was hit by an asteroid, wiped out all life, destroyed the atmosphere. So Mars was actually hit with an Armageddon from above. And the story goes, according to this astronaut, a chunk of Mars went into space, and it contained the basic elements of life. And so that landed here on Earth, which at that time was barren, much like Mars is today. And so that stuff came down to Earth and became the beginnings of life on Earth. And so according to NASA's own story, we might all be Martians. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they say. Well, so anyway, I thought this is ridiculous. Why are they even telling these dumb stories? And it cuts to a commercial. And the commercial was for a 12-episode TV series called Salvation, about an asteroid coming down to hit the Earth and what the space station does to stop it. So you're watching this fake news about asteroids wiping out entire planets, and then you have a TV show about it. So really, you can see where they're going based on the propaganda they've given us and how saturated we are with it and how much we believe it. And right now, they seem pretty confident that people are believers enough in the space program that they can do a lunar base. And so you know how ridiculous the ISS looks. It looks ridiculous, and it's getting worse all the time. And we're comparing it to better material that we're always inundated by. So they're going to have to bring down the ISS because it's an eyesore and it's a weak link. So what they're going to do is they're going to replace it with a full-time lunar base, which will look more realistic. And check this out too. I was thinking, in the ISS, they're 0G, right? Well, on the moon, it's got 1/6 of the Earth's gravity. So faking stuff on the moon is actually going to be easier than it has been in the ISS because they've done it before. And they said that 1969 was coming back in 2018, and it looks like they're going to do it. All right, so thanks for joining me here today. I'm going to upload this thing in its entirety later, but mainly I was really just kind of wanted to make a couple of points. The main point is that you don't bring your Bible to the climate change debate. Why do you bring the Bible to a discussion about the shape of the world?
So many scriptures, there's no firmament on a ball. Like, there's no firmament on a spinning ball. Like, if we're spinning in space, how is the firmament gonna, no, there's a firmament.